right, so apparently we are live. Hello everyone, the Wellness Committee would like to introduce Ciscoe Morris here.
Oh la la.
Thank you for coming out today.
It's a miracle I made it.
And whenever you're ready, go ahead and go.
All right, cool. Okay, to start, I want to ask, how many of you know why I say oh la la all the time? Oh, good, this is my favorite story. So, I am a traveler, so everywhere I go, people go, so what's with this oh la la? Why do you say it? So I'm quite a traveler. I lead garden tours around the world. I've led 26 international garden tours. Now, I just got back from Sicily and Malta. In Malta, they have the oldest known temple on earth. It's a bunch of boulders piled on top of each other, but you can actually go in and see the rooms. They have no idea. They know how old it is, but I forgot. But they don't know who the people were, what they did in the temple, and what happened to them. There's no record of any of that. So it's very interesting. But anyway, so I'm a world traveler, and when I lead a garden tour, usually my wife Mary comes with me, and then we'll do some kind of exercise thing at the end. Like, you know, if we're leading a tour to Italy or something, we'll go hike the Dolomite Mountains, for instance. As a matter of fact, even if we're not leading a tour, Mary and I go different places for exercise a lot. And one of the most famous things we did, and the most fun, we actually hiked the entire French Alps, just the two of us. It took us 29 days, 360 miles. And, but it's not quite as hard as you'd think. The hiking's really hard. You hike up, you hike down, you hike up, but you stay in huts up in the top of the mountains, and they give you a sleeping sheet. So all you need is, or they give you a blanket, all you need is a sleeping sheet. And so you don't have to carry sleeping bags and all those kind of things, a tent. And just a side story, those huts are all really different. So one of the huts that we stayed in held 90 people. It was huge. It was by Mont Blanc, and a lot of people hike around Mont Blanc. But some of the huts we stayed in held 15 people. So you never knew, and you'd have to have the hut you were in call ahead and tell them, hey, I got a couple of people to save my spot tonight, you know. One hut, and this is a side story, was really weird. So it had a 40-foot mattress right through the middle of the building. And the madame came out and said, Monsieur, vous êtes ici, Madame, vous êtes ici. You have no idea who you're going to be sleeping next to on that mattress. And I actually woke up in the middle of the night with my arm around Mary. Then I went, which side is Mary on? But that's another story. So where oh la la came from was, it was on a 1,000-mile bike ride through France. So I love France. My wife went to school in France, and I can parle un peu in French. It's kind of funny, the French always give me a compliment for the way I speak French. They say, vous parlez comme une vache. It means you talk like a cow. I'm sure it's a compliment. So anyway, we were on a 1,000-mile bike ride in France. We weren't leading a garden tour or anything. We just went, and so we're riding along. We're somewhere near Aix. We started in Saint-Tropez. We're going all the way up into Bretagne in the north of France. And we're riding along, and we saw something that if you've been to France in the last 10 years, you've seen before. And what they are, they're big plastic igloos. They're bathrooms. And they were just putting them in when we were there riding our bikes. So we saw these, we recognized what they were, even though we'd never been in one or anything else. And there were a couple sitting there around X. So we pulled over on our bikes, and I sat on the bench watching our bikes, and Mary had to put in 2 francs to go in and use the bathroom. Pretty soon she comes out, she's holding the door, and she goes, "You're not gonna believe it in there. It's sparkling clean and it plays great music." I'm like, whoa, great. So I start looking for 2 francs. She goes, "Why waste 2 francs? I got the door open, just go use it." I go, "Yeah, why waste 2 francs? So I went in and shut the door. There's one little thing I didn't know about these French toilets. They're self-cleaning. When the door shuts, it means the person has left, it's time to clean. So I walk up to the front, whoosh, I get blasted right in the chest by this jet of soapy water. I run to the back, whoosh from behind. I go to the door, it's locked, whoosh from the side. Whole time Mary's sitting on this bench, watching the toilet going, hearing, ah! Finally, the jet stopped, the door opens, I come staggering out, drenched from head to foot, and here's this little old French guy wearing a beret, holding a baguette, looks at me and goes, "Oh la la." So now you know why I say oh la la. Okay, well, all right, just so you know what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give away all these plants that are on the table. So, yeah, you'll get your chance. Some of you get a chance, and at the end, I'm gonna give away a very rare thing, a Gardening with Ciscoe t-shirt. I never sell these. I give one away at every talk. So I'll show you these in a bit. And I'm also gonna give away one of my books. It's Oh La La, but I'll show it to you in a minute. So that's my newest book. So, but before I start doing that, what I want to do is just show you a few things, because on a lot of the talks I go to now, people go, "Aren't you kind of harming the environment if you bring in a bunch of exotic plants?" And I'm the biggest plant collector you'll ever meet on earth. I have so many rare plants. My goal in earth is to have every plant on earth in my garden at one time before I die, and I think I'm 3 away now, you know. I'm quite the plant collector. But the interesting thing is that the newest studies, so they did one at Great Dixter, a really famous garden in England, and we sort of did one at Seattle U, because I was a director for grounds care at Seattle University for 24 years. So when I got to Seattle University, it almost was a native garden. I mean, there weren't that many exotic plants except for the trees that got brought in by a guy named Fujitaro Kubota, who, if you ever heard of Kubota Gardens, so he worked with a priest to put in a pretty cool kind of a pseudo-Japanese garden. And the problem was the priest who kind of put that garden in with Fujitaro Kubota had died. He was sick for 5 years, and then he died. And nobody was really knew how to maintain the gardens or anything. And so what happened was all these weed trees grew up on the campus. There's something called Ailanthus, tree of heaven, should have been named tree of hell. It grew right in the middle of the most beautiful specimen Japanese maples you've ever seen. You know, the other thing was, and so we had these coming up everywhere because they seed themselves like wild banshees. The other thing that happened was the spraying was being done by the painter. So I walked out of my office. I'd only been working there about a week. And I walk out of the office, and there's this guy, noon on a school day, with all the college people walking by and everything, blasting diazinon, one of the worst chemical pesticides you could find, blasting the trees. So I ran up and said, "Who are you, and why are you spraying my trees?" And the guy said, "Oh, I'm Ed the painter. I do all the spraying here." I said, "What are you trying to kill?" And he said, "The bugs." I go, "Which bugs?" He goes, what difference does that make? The only good bug is a dead bug, you know? So I quickly got it so he couldn't spray anymore. We changed the whole program. We became the first university practically in the United States to go all organic gardening. It was really cool. We used no poisons. We even stopped using herbicides. So, but one thing I did, I brought in a million gazillion exotic plants because I love perennial gardens and I like really cool shrubs. And so what we found is all of a sudden the bird population exploded on campus because the newest research from UW is showing that gardens that have a wide variety of plants from all over the world attract way more birds than our native gardens. So in the woods and things, you do attract birds, but only a small proportion of them because there's just not enough to eat. And so the more you attract, the more different kind of plants you put in, the more you attract birds. And the funnest bird in the whole world to attract are hummingbirds. They are a kick and a half. I was out gardening yesterday. One missed my nose by about 2 millimeters. They were having a fight and they just, and they did that big study at Great Dixter, which is a real diverse, really cool garden, you know, because the English sent people out in the 1800s looking for cool plants to plant. And they found that the number of insects and beneficial insects in that garden were so much higher than they could find in any native garden in England that it was uncomparable. So I'm just saying, plus there's one last thing to say about this, and that is, if you garden with a lot of cool exotic plants, you will fall in love with gardening like nothing you've ever seen because they're so cool. It's not saying that there aren't some of the coolest native plants in the world, and you want a mix of both for sure. So I brought some natives that we could pass around or whatever from my garden, just a quick show. But when you add exotic flowers, so this is a peony, it's called Buckeye Betty. If you can get this peony, buy it. Stick it in a sunny spot with good drainage. It is the best. These were the original wedding flowers. Back in the days before they had refrigeration, they knew right when to pick them when they knew that their flowers would open the day of the wedding. So they pick them in the morning and bring them out in the afternoon into the warmth and boom, they'd come open. But can you imagine if you were a bee getting in the pollen of that flower right there? I see them just rolling around in the pollen. They love it so much. So I'll stick it here if anyone wants to pass it around. So that's Buckeye Betty. This is the best peony on earth. You didn't used to be able to find it, but now, thank you, but now I saw it at Swanson's nursery in Seattle right when they were getting their peonies in, so it may be gettable again. I show a couple other exotic plants and I'll show some cool natives. So these are Iceland poppies, and so these come from Arctic areas of the world, and they bloom and bloom. There must be 40 blooms on each of my Arctic poppies out there. There's one problem. They hate the winter here, and they die in the winter. So you have to dig them up and stick them in your unheated garage by a window and water them down there when they're going to quit blooming all winter. And then you might be able to keep them alive, or you have to buy them every year. But if this gets pulled around, you'll see all the stamens in there. And I see the bees, they go nuts for these. So what I'm trying to do is make sure there's tons of things to attract bees and pollinate bees. Thank you. All right, now I'll show a few native plants that I like. And I'm gonna give away a native plant in a minute. So first of all, I confess these aren't native. But, oh, I don't even know what that is. Oh, okay. These were native when I put them in. These are columbine. And so columbine is one of the most attractive of all plants to hummingbirds. They're nuts for them. And you can't fail with columbine. You could live in the woodziest, darkest area. You plant one columbine. If your neighbor plants one columbine, they're gonna get married and you're gonna have columbines everywhere. When I started with columbine, I really liked the native one. It's red and yellow. So I planted a few of those, but my neighbor had some blue ones in his garden. Well, I can't find a yellow and red one anymore, but they come up in every color in the rainbow, and I've never replanted. So if you want a plant that attracts hummingbirds, now, there's one bad thing about columbine. If you're a person like me that has perennials all over and everything, they come up right in the middle of your prized perennial. And they send a taproot so deep they're hard to get out. But it only happens now and then. What's the diff, you know? So, all right. Okay, I'm gonna give away a plant here. Now, cool. So, now this is native, but don't even try for this. See, what you gotta do, you're gonna have to solve my tough Ciscoe garden stumper question. These are so hard, they throw people into tizzies of nervous anxiety. Even though I've never stumped anyone, I figured out why. It's because I've been giving people 2 tries on true and false. So today could be the day. So this is big. This is gonna get 30 feet tall and 20 feet wide. So unless you got room for this, but if you got a big, wide open area, you want a really cool tree that attracts the rufous hummingbird when it comes back from Central America and Mexico. That's your baby. So we have 2 hummingbirds. We've got the Anna hummingbird, the big green one right now. Its whole head is red, you know, when you see the male. And then we've got the rufous hummingbird, which is kind of an orange color and much smaller. The Anna's hummingbird stays here year-round. This has only been happening since the mid-1970s. They just decided the climate got warm enough they could stay here. And they have a way of dealing with cold. They go into a kind of a trance, and their feet hold so tight that when they go into this trance in the middle of the night, sometimes they go, and you'll see them hanging upside down, but their little feet don't let go. And they slow their heart rate and everything so slow, they survived 11 degrees in my back garden. A lot of my plants didn't survive, but the hummingbirds did. So I'm so happy. So the rufous fly all the way back to South America and Central America. Then they fly all the way back. They could fly 250 to 500 miles a day. And so what they're looking for when they get up here, by the way, this is interesting. The hummingbirds, when they leave Central America and Mexico, they fly as a big flock. So you'll see the males come first. I have a friend who lives on the California-Oregon border. She was doing her dishes. She saw 50 male rufous hummingbirds go shooting by her window while she was doing the dishes. What a treat. But when they get up here, they disperse because they hate each other's guts. They don't want to share a territory with anyone. But what they're looking for plants that bloom right when they come back. So flowering currant is a really good one, Ribes sanguineum. If you've got some of those, boy, that attracts them like mad. If you've got some of these guys in bloom, this is Malus fusca, and what it is, this is a crab apple. I don't know if you've been to the Arboretum in Seattle, but when you leave the Arboretum, the headquarter building where they got the store and everything, when you leave that and take the main trail into the Arboretum, the trail divides, and right in between is a Malus fusca. It is the coolest looking tree you'll ever see in your life. It's native to Western Washington. It's up in BC, down in California, out through Oregon. They like kind of moist, sunny spots. And so their trunks get really thick, and they're the coolest looking tree you ever saw. I can't remember what color the flowers are. I think they're pink, but they could be whitish pink. And then and that feeds hummingbirds like mad. They love the flowers, and these flower right when the hummingbirds come back. So if you got a big tree like this out in your thing, there's a good chance if you got some other things like flowering currant, native to Washington, and other plants, those hummingbirds will see that, and one of them will pick your garden. If you've got moving water, hummingbirds hate still water. They won't go to your bird bath. But what they will do is if you've got fountains where the water drips down, anything like that, they'll go and drink the water where it's dripping down. They'll do little pirouettes. I have this old man fountain. It's so cool. It was made by these famous garden artist friends of mine, Little and Lewis. And so it's an old man's face about this big, and it spits water into a basin 3.5 feet below. And the hummingbirds come and drink the water where it comes out of his mouth and ride it all the way to the basin drinking. And then they come up and do it again. Then they start doing pirouettes in the spray of water coming out of his mouth. It's the coolest thing you ever saw, but don't laugh at a hummingbird. There's some rufous hummingbirds that were doing that, and I was with a friend, and we were laughing. It was so funny. And then we were walking down the narrow trail. Whack! One of those little rufous hummingbirds hit me right in the ear, and it sat in front of me. Beep, beep, beep. I was like, all right, I won't laugh, so don't laugh at a hummingbird, whatever you do. So it's a really cool tree if you got room for it. And it does get crab apples, and all the birds love these crab apples. They're nice and little, so they can eat them real easy. So you'll get a lot of songbirds on this tree. Okay. So who has the room for a tree like this? Uh-oh. Oh, good. Well, all right. Well, I'm going to give you first, so you're going to get your chance to win this. All right. So I have a question for you. Oh, I know, just the one I want to ask. So I'm going to show one thing as I do this. So this is a different kind of camas lily. Have you heard of camas lily? They're native to Washington, and they have blue flowers. Usually the flowers are way bigger than this, but this is one with variegated foliage. It's a rarity, I gotta have to do a different thing. And so these plants are really famous because a lot of the American natives, especially as you get down through Idaho and all the way down to the coast of Washington, eat the bulbs of this. Now, they don't just dig the bulbs up and eat them. They make a cake out of them, and they make bread out of them. And the bread tastes kind of like it's a cross between a sweet potato and a pear, from what I've heard. And there's white camas lilies, too. White camas lily is called the death lily. And so the American natives always dug those out wherever they saw them and got rid of them. But they depended on eating these. So Lewis and Clark, when they did their famous voyage, they got to the Bitterroot Mountains in Idaho, and they were starving to death. They had no more food. They couldn't find any deer to shoot, nothing. And they had a really hard cross into the mountains. They didn't know the best way to go. And they finally get to the other side, and the Nez Perce Indians saw them and said, you guys are in really bad shape. We're going to help you. So they fed them. They fed them some berries, some dried salmon, and a lot of camas, the cake they make out of them. And the problem is, this is something you have to get used to. In fact, it's famous for creating horrible flatulence if it's not cooked right. So before you try some, read the recipe. So they ate way too much of it. And they got so sick. They had the runs like nobody's ever had in life, just what they needed, you know. They got through it. And then when they're leaving, the Nez Perce said, here, let us give you a whole bunch of this camas bread. So I think they took it to be nice, thinking they're going to stick it in the river after they got out of there. And but they didn't. Here's your question. Why did they end up loving camas instead of throwing it in the river after about a couple weeks that they had carried it with them? Do you want 3 choices? Yes. Okay. Was it that they just decided if we eat a little at a time, it'll be all right? Is it that it smelled so good they couldn't resist it? Or is it because it fermented and made a really great alcohol for the rest of their trip? You got it. All right. Hey, you just won this cool tree. So, and you can always email me. You can always email me at Ciscoe.com, Ciscoe.com. So you have to email me and tell me how this does for you. Yay! All right, cool as could be. All right, I'm going to show another plant before I give away another one. So let me see what I haven't shown. Okay, what happened to those? Are they in there? Let me look. Well, here it is. Shush, that was hard to find. So this is a bleeding heart. So this is called Dicentra formosa. And I'm not sure why Formosa is in the name. It's not from Formosa. It's from Washington. It's native all over Washington, BC, down through Oregon. Has this really pretty fringy foliage. And so hummingbirds are nuts for this. So they'll come, and this is a ground cover. This spreads like mad. As a matter of fact, it's too good of a ground cover for me because it's starting to cover up some of my kind of rare little guys. But I just pull it out where it's gone too far. I want lots of it around for the hummingbirds, you know. And I just thought I'd show, though, this is a bleeding heart, and it's called Dicentra spectabilis. It comes from China, and this gets 3.5 feet tall. This one is called ruby heart, so there's gold heart, and the leaves stay really beautiful gold in your garden, which is so wonderful. And it's got these bleeding hearts. This blooms right when the hummingbirds come back. So if you've got a bunch of these things around, you got a good chance. Now, if the male hummingbird, Rufus, the Annis hummingbirds are already here, and they usually already have your house picked out or something. But if you start adding a lot more plants with food for them, they may move from your neighbors over to your house. So, you know, and then, so if the Rufus comes back, sees you've got all his food, you've got moving water, and you've got plants at different heights so they can make their nests. They want to be under heavy foliage so the rain doesn't get in their nests, and they don't want to be in the wind. I've had them put their nests on the side of my garage under the eaves before. It's really surprised me. If you've got all those things, the hummingbirds disperse. One of those Rufus hummingbirds might go, I'm going to make my nest here. This is perfect territory for me. The females come up a week later. They're looking for the male Rufus, not because they like him, because he's a nasty bugger, but they chase everything out of the garden, including me now and then. But the interesting thing is, if the male made your area's territory, the female will know it, she'll nest. if you get hummingbird nests in your garden, you are in for the treat of your life. It is so fun to watch. Usually they lay 2 eggs in a little nest about the size of a walnut, and they'll let you walk right up to the nest. It's amazing. The biggest thing that you have to remember is that if you see a lot of hummingbirds in your garden, before you start pruning, really look around. You don't want to cut one of their nests off. That would be the worst thing I can imagine. Well, I'll leave these up here, but they're not that much to see. But okay, I'm giving away another plant. Okay, I'll go one more native. Oops. Because I am absolutely in love with this plant, and I've got it in my garden. So this is evergreen huckleberry, Vaccinium ovatum. Ovatum means egg-shaped, and so it's probably talking about the fruit on this. But so this thing in the sun, you could plant these in the sun, and they'll get about 4 feet tall. If it's too hot and sunny, it might have problems. But if it's, in an open spot, in a sunny spot, but you got other plants around, it'll probably do fine. But it likes bright shade, and if you plant it in bright shade, it'll get 12 feet tall. Now, it gets little white flowers that look like blueberry flowers, because this is in the blueberry family or the rhododendron family. And so, gets those wonderful little white flowers that they're all right, but hummingbirds like them. But then, even more amazing, it gets these fruit. Now, some of them, you never know what kind of fruit you're gonna get. I've had quite a few of these over the years. Some of them have the cruddiest little berries you ever saw. Some have good sized ones. You never know. The birds know right away. You never get these. The birds are after those berries. But you know what people use these for the most? For a kind of a background plant in their flower arrangements. So there's people who go out to the woods and make their living cutting branches off these and sell them to the florists. So anyway, one of you is going to win this, and this is so good at attracting birds. It's one of my favorite things, and it's really pretty. A lot of times you could see it on this. The new growth comes out really red in the spring, and in the winter, sometimes a lot of the leaves turn dark red. It's really cool. So somebody's going to get your chance to win this. Okay, who has ever had a wiener dog? Who wishes they ever had a wiener dog? Okay, you're first. You get your chance to win this. See, I've never had a wiener dog. I have dogs. I'm the biggest dog lover there ever was. But I've never had a wiener dog, but I really think wiener dogs are cool because they're fearless. They're not afraid of anything on earth. You have a deer in the garden, send out the wiener dog. That deer will be running for its life. You got a bear in your garden, bring back the grizzlies. Who cares? Send out the wiener dog, So they're totally fearless. I have one problem with wiener dogs. It's the only kind of dog that my 2 dogs are terrified of. It's because they ran into a nest of them down by the park. They've never been the same. Okay, all right, let me see what question. Oh, I know what question I want to ask you. Okay, do you guys have the rabbit epidemic down here? Are you seeing rabbits every time you look out your window? Yeah. All of Western Washington, as near as I know, have this rabbit epidemic, and they're everywhere. I look out the window, I see 5 out in my front garden sometimes. Those rabbits are not from here. Those rabbits are from the East Coast and Wisconsin, where I grew up. They drove us nuts in Wisconsin. They were always eating our vegetables, Guess how they got here? They were brought here by hunters who thought it would be fun to shoot white cottontail rabbits. Evidently, they were bad shots. Now we got a million of these buggers. Oh, la, la. Okay, here's your question. All right. Let me see which one I wanted. Which is a good bug, a fast bug or a slow bug as a general rule? You only get 2 tries.
Slow bug?
You got it wrong, but you get it anyway. Yeah, fast bugs are almost always the good bugs because Mama Nature made them fast to run after the bad bugs and catch them. When you look at aphids, they never even move. They're just like cattle in the field. But like the lace bugs and the lady beetles, they're fast and they're out hunting for their prey and run and grab them, you know. So, all right, but you won it either way. I think you're going to really love this. Just needs well-drained soil. Doesn't want to live in clay. And by the way, I should tell you, I had a pet bunny when I was a kid. So when I was a little kid, I was always the littlest kid in my class. Took me forever to grow it all, you know. So I was a real pipsqueak, and I was a Cub Scout. Every year they had a Cub Scout jamboree where 500 kids would come at Christmas, and the MC would pick one kid out of 500, and that kid got a pet bunny if he went up and sang Jingle Bells. So every year I wanted to win that bunny. And the first year I was 8 years old, right in the front row, waving my hand at the MC, picked a kid right next to me. I couldn't believe it. So that kid won the bunny. The next year I was about halfway back. I was 9, and I'm like waving and shouting, not even close, picked somebody way over here. So now I'm 10 years old, I'm still about this tall, and I'm in the back of the thing, and I'm thinking my chances are like 0. Out of 500 kids, the MC picks me. I was so excited I forgot the words to Jingle Bells. Oh la la. And so it wasn't until years later I found out that MC was one of my dad's best friends, and he knew my dad did not want a bunny. Oh la la. Okay. Well, I should ask, do any of you guys have a question you want to ask yet about egg planting? Well, if you ever do, right here.
I have a fig tree that's gone tall and leggy. How aggressive can I be in cutting him back, or should I do it early to force the growth?
Here's the thing about fig trees. So in case anybody couldn't hear it, she's got a fig tree. It's really getting big, and they do. A lot of them do. I actually have a dwarf fig tree. I think it's called Little Honey, something like that. And Little Ruby, I don't remember, but it's not very big, but it hasn't produced any figs yet either. I just got it. So, but figs, what they do, most of them, is they produce, so you probably have noticed, figs are ready to harvest in late July, early August, sometime around then. And what they do, they're like this, and they go like that. Then you just make sure they're soft. It's time to harvest. Don't wait. If you do, every bird, blue jays, crows, raccoons, everybody's after those figs. I planted them at Seattle University when I ran the grounds there, and I couldn't figure out what was getting all my figs. I'd be waiting for them to do the thing, and then the night they do it, I'd come out and they're all gone. I found out it was a priest. That's a Jesuit college. He was stealing all my figs. Geez, he probably went to hell, but we won't talk about that. So, but here's what figs do. So you eat those ones in July. It sets new figs. Those rarely ripen up. That's the second crop. Those usually fall off unless we get a really good hot summer. They never ripen up. But when those fall off, already little teensy figs are formed on your tree. And unless you really look close, you don't even see them. Those have to go through the whole winter, and they're the ones you're going to eat in July. So the best time to prune them is during winter. But if you prune them real hard in winter, then what happens, you're cutting off all those figs you're gonna get next year. Now, you'll get them the following year, but, so it's kind of a hard choice, but they could take quite a hammering. So you can cut it back, and you literally can do it now. Just be aware you're gonna be cutting off a lot of figs, but sometimes you gotta do it. So I think, I don't know if I take more than a third of it off, but I think if that works, if that kills your tree, please tell everyone who asks you that Ed Hume gave you this advice. Okay, all right. All right, let's give away another plant here. So one of the questions I got asked was, what is an indestructible house plant? So I love house plants. As a matter of fact, when my wife married, I got married, we had to have a purge. You had to take a malaria pill to walk in my house. There were so many plants. I just love them. But, and I especially love going to the rare house plant section in the nursery. But there are some house plants that are so hard to grow. And when they go to heck, it's a pain. And our houses aren't always, situated right for house plants. Here's the first most important lesson with house plants. House plants tell you where they want to live. You don't tell them where they want to live. So if I put this Dracaena in a spot and it starts going downhill, I'm going to quick try somewhere else. So this is a Dracaena, and in my humble opinion, this is the most indestructible house plant there is, if you know the trick. So the trick is, what most of us do is overwater our house plants, and it's so easy to do because it's hard. One thing, you can feel how light this is, and this is quite light, but it's not ready for water yet. These plants, the leaves droop when they want you to give them a drink of water. So I watch them, you get used to it, you watch the leaves, when you see them droop, time to give it a drink. Make sure that you throw the excess water out of the saucer, and you could fertilize this guy once a month with a half-strength fertilizer. It would work really good, but these could take really low light. My office, I've got an east window in my office, but I got a Japanese maple in front of it. So it's I'm not getting as much light at all as I'd like to have. And we've got this file drawer thing, and we keep plants on it because it looks nice, And one of the few plants that has really thrived there is Dracaena. So if it's too dark, no, that's going to kill it. But if it's reasonably like the light in a living room in a house, this will thrive like mad. Just remember, only water it when you see those leaves droop. That's the key. Yes?
What about kind of the fluorescent lighting that's in our offices?
Okay, in the office, yeah. This would do good in an office. So at Seattle U, we had to take care of all the house plants. Now, people could buy their own house plants and bring them in, but the president's office, everybody had house plants, and we had to take care of them. It's interesting. So the president of the university had plants in his dining room. I got in really big trouble because somebody squealed that I was releasing wasps in his dining room. They were the teensiest wasps you'll ever see, and they lay their eggs in scale, which is a horrible insect that causes trouble in houseplants. So I was releasing moths every 2 weeks in there. Wasps. And he thought they were like, bald-faced hornets or something. Yeah, these would do really well. But I'll tell you a few other, if you've got a little brighter light, if you've got a window you could put it by, African violets are so great. And so what you want to do with African violets is they'll come in a pot like this. You buy a decorative pot with no drainage hole around, and you just put this in that. But then when you water, and African violets, even they droop. So you could see it, their leaves droop. And I wait for that, then I pull it out and I put in just about maybe a ½ inch of water and put this back in. African violets cannot stand getting their leaves wet. You never miss them or anything like that. I don't miss any of my plants. All you end up with is fungus. But a lot of plants, the problem they have, they need high humidity. And in our houses in winter, we're running the heater, especially if you have electric heat, the humidity level goes so low in our houses, it's down below 30%. That, a lot of plants can't handle that. This is one that can, but not many, yes.
What's considered high humidity? What percentage?
What was that?
For high humidity, what's the percentage that you recommend?
Well, if you can get the humidity up to 50, you're doing a lot better. 60, plants love anything above 60. You got to be careful. If you raise, I've had friends that bought humidifiers and the wallpaper started falling off the wall. They were way overdoing it. You can't do that. But you know what you can do? There's a really easy solution. Put a whole bunch of plants together. That raises the humidity like crazy. So that's my excuse for having about 80 plants by every window in the house, you know. But it really does work. If you have to, you could buy a humidifier, but if you had to, what you can do is put one of those indoor fountains in. So nurseries carry those quite a bit, and I think they're really cool. You get the sound of water in the house, and it really raises the humidity, especially if you have lots of plants around them. If they break, whatever you've got them on is going to be toast. It's going to get rotten for sure, and that can happen, so you have to be careful. But yeah, so African violet, wonderful plant. They bloom and bloom and bloom. And my favorite house plant by a mile is anthurium. They call it the, what are those things everybody puts the pink, flamingo. They call it the pink flamingo plant. And, but they come in different colored flowers, and my favorite are the dark red. And in a pot like this, I'll have 6 big blooms at any time. And all they need, that east, I've got them in a west window behind a sheer curtain, and they love it. So give that a try. They bloom all the time. Really cool. Yes?
We have a question from our audience online for the plant that you have in your plant currently. Can you repeat the name, and also is it pet friendly?
Okay, so this is Dracaena. Sometimes people call it dragon plant. I have to confess, I can't remember if this is pet friendly or not, because where I have Dracaena in my house, the pets can't get at it. But this is what I tell everybody about houseplants. You gotta go online, do a search on Google. You can get a list of all the houseplants that are poison. Now there's gonna be some rare ones that nobody knows. And it's usually cats that get in trouble, because I've had a lot of cats. Every time I bring in a new house plant, they're gonna go explore it, you know, take a few bites out of the leaves, probably just to make you mad, you know, but so you have to be careful, and really you should always check, you know, and in the nursery, you know, I used to buy a lot of my house plants before Malbecs went belly up. I'm still brokenhearted over that right now. But so they have great houseplant selection there, but a lot of nurseries do. The person in the houseplant section will look it up for you real quick on the computer. So you don't have to take it home and go, oh my God, I'm gonna have to give it to somebody, my cat's gonna get into that. So always do a search. That's the only way you can be sure, you know, because I could be wrong, and I don't wanna make a boo-boo and hurt somebody's kitty cat or dog, you know, so yeah. Was there another question?
Nothing from online, how about in here?
Oh, a question right there.
One is about junior fuchsias, because they come back, but they turn too early.
Great question. So she's talking about, and I'll give this away in a minute. She's talking about hardy fuchsias. So there's two kinds of fuchsia. There's the ones in the basket that hang down. Those like shade. They'll bloom like mad in the shade, but most of them aren't hardy. So you got to put them in an unheated garage or somewhere for the winter. Cut them down, and then just give them a little water on the holidays like Christmas, New Year's, just a teensy bit, and they'll usually come back like gangbusters in the spring. Maybe replant them. But there's another kind of fuchsia called hardy fuchsia. They are the coolest plants on earth. None of mine are blooming yet, or I would have brought a branch to show you. But so they come with different sizes and colored flowers. So there's ones they call ladies' eardrops, or ladies' earrings sometimes, and they have really small flowers, but the hummingbirds love them. Those come from the Straits of Magellan down in Chile. I hiked along those straits. They're 20 feet over my head, 20 feet tall, hardy fuchsias with hummingbirds just everywhere. It was unbelievable. So those kind are so hardy, and you could cut those down to 1 inch from the ground. Anytime you want, they'll come back. Well, almost anytime you want. But spring, you could do it. You don't have to worry if it's too early. Okay, the other kinds have much bigger flowers. Some have really big flowers. Some, average about a ½ inch flower. So Lady Boothby's a good one. Mrs. Popple is to die for. Aztec has huge red flowers. Some have purple and red. They're just the best plant. Hummingbirds love them. They start blooming in May or June, and then they just keep blooming till way after Thanksgiving. And that keeps your Anna's hummingbirds happy in your garden until, if you do what I do, because I travel all the time, I plant things that feed hummingbirds in wintertime. So I don't have to hang a feeder, and my Anna's hummingbirds stay year-round. So if you want to see what those are, go to my website, go to tips, and then you'll see gardening. Go to that, and some of my talks are on there. So what it'll have is Hummingbird Madness, go down to the last 12, and those are all plants that feed hummingbirds in winter. So you can see what they are. But Daphne odora, there's some viburnums that do it. Something called Edgeworthia, which is the coolest plant on earth with these flowers that hang down. It's in the Daphne family, and they get about that big. They're white and they turn yellow, and the hummingbirds just sit there on them all day. So there's a whole bunch of plants. Sarcococa, that's called sweet box. So anyway, back to your question. So these hardy fuchsias really got hammered this year. Got so cold. And worst part, it went from warm to cold, just like that. The plants weren't ready for it. And so most of mine now are coming back. So I wait till I see new growth on the bottom, but after a while, if I don't see it, I think, well, I'm going to cut it down anyway because it looks like heck in my garden. But I've seen almost every one of them is coming back. There's one, Aztec, which is one of my all-time favorite. It's a monster. I haven't seen any growth on that yet, and I'm starting to think, oh no, I think I lost it, but I'm hoping I didn't, So the best is to wait till you see the new growth coming from the base. Then you can just cut down 4 inches high and boom. But I ended up cutting them all right to the ground because there was no new growth, nothing. It took them forever to grow, but all but one of mine, and I must have 12 of them, are coming back. So they'll come back. Yeah, so always wait till spring. Yeah, wait till spring when everything's starting to grow. Yeah, I should have said that. Yeah, if you do it in winter, there's a good chance you'll never see it again. I know. Well, they lied to us this year. They said we're going to have the mildest winter in history and everything. Oh, la la. It was so horrible, but Yeah. Well, I grow something called a butylon. It's flowering maple. They come from South America. And they have these hibiscus-like flowers, bell-shaped flowers that hang down. They're in the hibiscus family. And they bloom year-round. And hummingbirds die for these, but they're not hardy. There's only one that's hardy. It's called Megapotamicum, and I left that out, and that's back. But all the other ones, and there's so many different kinds, they die. Like there's red tiger, there's all these. They die if you leave them out. There's no way they could take the cold. So I dig them out, pot them up, and put them in my unheated garage. I have 70 plants in my unheated garage every winter. I have never understood why people park cars in those things. That's such good gardening space. I actually took the whole south side of the garage, turned it into windows, put in skylights. I have light banks out there. It's really great. But you know what my biggest problem is? On a warm day, I need to open the garage door. I got a fan blowing in there to keep air circulation. But whenever I can, I open the garage door. But these abutylons won't stop blooming. And if the hummingbirds see them in there blooming, into my garage, I go, what a battle it is getting them out of here. Drives me nuts, but that's about the biggest problem I have. So if you had a tender, if you knew you had a hardy fuchsia that they warn you maybe on the thing, this is only good to 30 degrees, you could dig it up, put it in the garage, put it by a light or a window, and water it just whenever it droops, and you'll keep it alive all winter and plant it back out. Yeah. But yeah, if you got unheated greenhouse, you could stick it in there. Oh, they would love that. Okay, I forgot to give this thing away. All right, so who has ever had 2 cats at once? Okay, I saw you first right there, the sweatshirt. All right. So, okay, let me check my question here. What is the smartest bird on earth, according to most bird experts? You want 3 choices? Is it a parrot? Is it a sparrow? Or is it a crow? You got it. Yeah, you betcha. You just won this. Yes, crows are the smartest birds on earth. They've done a lot of studies with them. And I watch them in my neighborhood. They are so smart. They drop nuts in the road, not to break them, to have the car run over them and break them. If the car misses it, they go down there and move the nut to the spot where the car's going to hit it. And in my neighborhood in Seattle, UW did studies on crows. I think this was 12 years ago. They put on these big masks. All the people in the neighborhood were terrified because there were these people walking around in these masks. And they captured crows and banded them. And then they let them go. That was 12 years ago. When they did this, if they walked out without a mask, crows didn't bother them. They put the mask on, every crow from all over attacked them. So they, this year, they sent some people out with a mask, they got attacked. The crows still remember those masks and know what they are. They are so smart, they're unbelievable. I will tell one quick story. I know I'm a storyteller, sorry. But I was giving a talk on the Vashon Island Garden Club. And so they have me meet this 93-year-old woman in the garden club who was really sharp. And I was talking to her, she was really fun. So later on, someone goes, how do you get crows out of your garden? We had problems with crows at CRU. I love all animals. But crows drove me nuts because they got in our garbage cans all the time, pull out garbage and litter all over the campus. And they ate a lot of our songbirds. I saw it happen a lot. If a baby songbird fell out of the nest or something, boy, there'd be 12 crows around it, you know, it was scary and horrible, but you couldn't save the bird. So I said, hey, I have no idea. I got crows in my garden. They live there. I can't do anything about it if I like it or not. The 93-year-old woman raises her hand. I go, yes? She goes, I know how to get rid of crows. I go, okay, how do you do it? She goes, well, you got to shoot one. I said, isn't it illegal to shoot crows? She goes, I just shoot one. No one tells. I said, you shoot it? She goes, don't give me any lips, sonny. I'm a crack shot. So I go, okay, then what do you do? She says, you take the crow and you throw it out in the garden where the crows are hanging out. She said, all the crows from miles around come and have a funeral for the crow. They walk around the crow for about 15 minutes. She goes, they fly away. She said, they don't come back for 3 months. I said, yeah, but then what do? You go out and shoot another crow? She goes, no, you dummy. You throw the crow in the freezer. So, and interestingly, at Seattle University, one of my gardeners came in, and I knew he wasn't doing a job with a shovel, and he grabbed a shovel, and I said, what are you going to do? He said, crow just landed on one of the high electric wires, and evidently there was no insulation. It got electrocuted. He said, I'm going out to bury it. I said, I want that crow. So I ran out, found the crow. It had a very surprised look on its face. And I took that out in the spot where the crows hung out on the campus, threw it on the ground, just like she described. All these crows came, danced around it for about 15 minutes to a half hour. They were gone for 3 months. I did not, however, throw the crow in the freezer. Okay. All right. Any other question at this point? Right here.
So I have a plum tree, and my neighbor had, I think, the mate to the plum tree, and they cut it down, and now my plum tree is not making plums anymore. How do I know which one it is, or because I need to get another one?
Okay, yeah, you've got a Japanese plum, or it's not an Italian plum, because they're the self-fertile one. So I think what you're going to have to do is it producing at all?
It is.
Good. When it produces some plums, take that to a nursery that specializes in fruit. And the best one, because it's not that far from here, is Rain Tree Nursery in Morton. So what you'd want to do is get on the web and find out their telephone number, call them up. The guy that owns it's a really neat guy, and say, I got this plum tree, I can't identify what it is, and they'll sell you the one you need at the same time, so you'll be able to solve that problem, because even fruit experts have trouble knowing what kind of plum they are sometimes. So this guy, I think, could do it. Bring a branch so he could see the leaves and everything. Yeah, and if you're going to plant fruit, you know, like apples, people plant apple trees, and then I get an email in my website, and they go, there's these black spots all over every leaf. Well, that's apple scab. That's a horrible disease. If you don't spray till you turn purple, it gets on the apples. It's just terrible. There are apples that are totally immune to apple scab. So Rain Tree Nursery is a great website because you can go there and they have lists of all the apples, how resistant they are. They have that about almost every fruit they grow, really great detailed info. So it can really help you if you plant a new tree. The big problem with apples now is apple scab, or apple maggot. And I don't know if you've ever had that. If you bite into an apple and half a caterpillar smiles back at you, then you just ate codling moth. And those are the ones that go to the middle of the apple and come back out, and you kind of see that a hole is bored through it. But apple maggot, if you bite into an apple and half of 12 maggots smile back at you, you just ate apple maggot that was probably very high protein, but not that great. And it rots them too, and it's a fruit fly. that lands on the apple. I've seen them many a time landed on the apple, sticking her ovipositor in there and laying her eggs right in the apple. So now, unfortunately, there's no apple tree immune to that. So you got to put, we used to put pantyhose footies around them, and they'd expand with the apple. It works pretty good, but codling moth bores right through it. Apple maggot doesn't get in, but then once some holes are in it, then the apple maggot gets in. So the new thing now, and this is kind of bad, but we're using plastic sandwich bags, not the kind where you have the thing you go zoop to shut it, but the kind you go to shut it, you know? And you put them right around the little baby apple, and you cut the bottoms of the baggie off so the water drains out if it goes in, and it just expands with the apple. You get no bugs at all. And then I save the bags. I don't want to, be throwing away hundreds of bags all the time and doing all that stuff with plastic. But it works really great. By the way, I have one thing I want to say. Don't put in AstroTurf. I hate that stuff. Okay. Was there a question? Yes.
We have another question from our live audience from Daniel Verhammer. He also has a plum tree in the backyard. What is the best way to prune? Is it like most fruit trees and the suckers growing straight up or cut off?
So here's the deal about pruning apple trees. In the winter time, if you want to lower the height of the tree or, because when you buy a fruit tree, buy a dwarf. You'll wish you had, because even dwarfs get 12 feet or more tall. If you get a semi-dwarf, it can get 25 feet if you don't keep it pruned like mad. And if you get a regular plum tree, it's going to be huge, or a big apple tree. So always get a dwarf. Now, the rule of pruning is you could prune 1/3 of the wood off a fruit tree in the winter time when it's dormant. So if you want to lower it, you could cut to where another branch goes. By the way, you always want your fruit tree to be shaped like this, never like this. If a tree goes like this, there's a hormone in all plants that goes to the top of the tree and makes growth happen there. That's why you put a climbing rose on an arbor, and all the roses are only on the top, nowhere else. So it's the same thing with fruit trees. So if you let your fruit tree go like this with the weight of the fruit and everything over time, it often does, all that hormone's going to go here, and you're going to get medusa. Nothing but suckers, right? Sprouts right out of the middle of the plant. It's horrible. It blocks the light, ruins air circulation. You got to cut those off. So in the winter, you can keep the tree the height you want, and and usually you want to cut to where another branch goes, but if you have to, you can cut where there's a node. And you could take 1/3 of the wood off. In the summer, if you're getting tons of sprout growth on your tree, you could cut 1/10 of the wood off. And so all you should do is cut off those sprouts that are coming out of the branches, crowding the tree in black and white. And if you do that every year, your tree will just do great. You can keep it the height you want. Works really well. So I usually pick a spot where this is going to be the top of the highest branch. Every year I'll cut it right up there. And after a while it gets kind of like a knuckle up there, but it doesn't matter. It actually looks kind of cool, and the tree doesn't mind that. And then you won't have a 20-foot tree that you got to try and deal with. So that's really fast and dirty how to prune a fruit tree. It's better to thin them. You know the biggest mistake people make? They buy this brand new fruit tree, plant it, they cut the end off every branch. When you do that, you cut that hormone it's also at the end of the branches and the highest branch points. And so that releases the rest of the plant to grow like mad. The hormone that's on the top of the tree says, just grow here, don't grow here. If you cut that off by cutting off all the end of the branches, then when that hormone is cut off, all these start to grow like crazy. And so what you're gonna get is sprouts growing everywhere, overcrowd your tree. So when you plant a new fruit tree, all you do is give it a nice shape. If there's two branches going like this, they're gonna end up breaking someday. So you gotta take the weaker one off. And you just try and give it a really nice open shape. You just stick with that for the rest of the time you got your tree. And over time, you'll have to prune more and more. There'll be more sprouts and everything. But you could keep that tree a nice low height and sprout free if you just prune twice a year. Did you have a question? No? Okay, I'm gonna give away another plant. Oh, right here.
So we're talking about fruit trees. When you espalier the fruit trees, what kind of trimming keeps them the best, since you do have that central growth hormone?
And this is what you want to do to your fruit tree, espalier it. So if you've got a really sunny fence or something, what you do is you prune the tree. I'm sure we've all seen it. You prune the branches, you take off anything going up, and you can buy pre-espaliered trees too, which is a good way to go. So, and they're just gonna send out maybe one branch down here, one on this line, maybe one more up here. And so what you do is as they grow, now, the first few years, if you've got sprouts growing up straight, you cut those to about 4 inches. That's called spur pruning. And all the energy that was in all that gets stored here, and it makes fruit buds happen really fast. So you do that to those. Then every year it's going to put out some growth, and you can cut it pretty much any height you want down, just making sure that you're keeping lots of fruit buds. And those espalier trees are the easiest things to prune in the world. You know, and you cut off anything odd that grows up, all that, and they produce like crazy. They're so much lower maintenance, it's unbelievable. So yeah, you got the right idea getting those. Okay, another plant. Okay, I just have 2 more, and then I'll give away a t-shirt and a book. So I've asked so many expert friends of mine what they think is the most attractive of anything they plant in their garden to hummingbirds, because I'm such a hummingbird hound. This is called Monarda, and people call it bug balm. And evidently, if you have this in your garden, it keeps a lot of bad bugs away. But I don't know if that's true or not, to be honest. But, so this one is called Jacob Klein, and it has these kind of daisy-like, not really daisy-like flowers. I wonder if anything I've got here is something like it. Well, no, but it's got these red flowers, it's just really thick, that grow out. Hummingbirds are so nuts for these, it's unbelievable. There's a lot of different monardas you can get, but in the old days, they called this something like, maybe you'll remember, it's a Ciscoe tea or something. So when they had the Boston Tea Party, and they threw all the tea in the drink to go to the English, they didn't have any tea to drink. Well, the American natives, which were the Ciscoe tribe or something, showed them that they could drink tea made out of the leaves of this, and it's real good, but it's an herbal tea. You don't get a buzz out of it. But which probably really made the English people unhappy, but so you can make great tea out of this. It seems to have some ability to repel insects. I've never seen insects ever get on mine at home. This one gets about this tall. This, if it's in moist soil in a sunny spot, this will just run like the wind. It just fills the area up. But they're easy to pull out where you don't want them. And it's Monarda, M-O-N-A-R-D-A, Monarda. This is Jacob Klein. And I'm sorry for you people on video if I keep forgetting to say the name of the plant again. But yeah, this is Monarda Jacob Klein. I just added one called, what is it? It's a pink fizz or something, and it has like the coolest magenta flowers. This has beautiful dark red flowers, but boy, did hummingbirds love it. It only blooms for about 2 months, and but boy, when it blooms, you got yourself a hummingbird magnet, to say the least. And now, the big problem with Monarda, why people stopped planting it, it got powdery mildew so bad, and that's a fungus disease. Makes it look like someone spilled powdered sugar all over the plant, and it looks horrible. They get weak. But this Monarda never gets powdery mildew. I've had it in my garden for years, never gets it. I hope this guy's in good shape. Whoever gets this, you could make cuttings out of this. I'm kind of worried about this. So when you plant it a little deeper out of the pot, because I'm so sorry that I don't know what's going on with that. But but I guarantee you will have hummingbirds if you've got a moist, sunny spot to plant this. Okay, I'm going to put it down before I wreck it completely here. I think that's still going to make it. I'm pretty sure. So, okay, I'll ask a question here. Oh yeah, who has ever raised ducks? Okay, you're gonna get your chance to win this. You have ducks now? Okay, well here's your question. You're gonna know the answer to this. Do ducks eat slugs? You're right. Oh, they devour slugs. So I'll bet you'll never find any slugs in your garden. So I had a friend down in Oregon, down in Corvallis, Oregon, and she was raising ducks. And there were two things I remember. One was whenever a plane flew over, you saw the shadow on the ground, the ducks ran for their life. They thought it was a hawk. So that was kind of cool. But I asked my friend, I said, is it true they really eat slugs? Because geese don't. Chickens do, but they tear them into 1,000 pieces first. So she said, oh, you will not find a slug in this garden no matter what you do. So I was, wow, you know. So I was off on a walk. I'm a big walker. I was about a mile from her house. I found this black slug, about this long, slimy thing. I had to carry it the whole mile back to her house. Oh, it's so horrible. I got back, I said, could I feed your duck this slug? She goes, well, I've never fed one out of my hand, you know. And I said, well, is there any harm? She goes, I guess not. So I had the slug in my hand. I stuck it out in front of her biggest duck. The duck went nuts. It just came running for this slug. The slug rolled up in the tightest ball you've ever seen. The duck just went, boom, took it right off my hand, but it had rolled into such a big gooey ball, the duck started choking to death on the slug. It was sitting there. I almost had to give a duck a Heimlich maneuver. Thank God it choked it down. So I wouldn't hand feed it. Okay, you won this great Monarda. You're gonna have to treat this really gentle though. So maybe keep a hand on it. Woo-hoo. All right, cool. Great. Okay, I think I'll give away another plant or I'll go forever. I wanted to show you this. This is Oregon grape, but this is Mahonia nervosa. The Oregon grape we all have in our gardens is Mahonia aquafilia, which gets this tall or this tall. You could cut that to the ground, it'll come back really pretty. This one never gets over 2 feet tall. Maybe 3, but no more than that. Gets this wonderful color on the leaves, and it gets flowers that hummingbirds love, yellow flowers, and it gets blueberries that the American natives always used to eat, and but all kinds of birds and animals eat them. So there's lots, and now if you want to feed hummingbirds in winter, you could buy Oregon grape from Asia. So they're called Mahonia media, and then they have different names. Media just means across. And so there's all these Mahonias or Oregon grapes from Asia that they're crossing, and they bloom all winter long. They get big yellow flowers on them, and oh my gosh, every hummingbird in my garden is on them every day, all winter long. So it's another reason I don't have to put up feeders in the winter in my garden, so it works really well. Remember this, if you feed hummingbirds in winter, never change the water, 1 part sugar to 4 parts water, cane sugar. Just mix it good, you don't have to heat it. But remember this, that if it freezes and you don't do anything, and that hummingbird is dependent on your feeder, could starve to death in 1/2 hour in freezing weather. So you gotta be careful if you hang up a feeder. And you gotta clean them a lot too. Okay, all right, I'm gonna give away this. This is not native. Oh, pardon me.
Will that cutting root?
This one? I don't know, but you're welcome to try. And you know one way I root a lot of plants? I just stick them in the ground. Cut them off, stick them in the ground in a moist spot, shady. This isn't the biggest sun lover. It likes a little bit of shade.
Should have enough notes.
Yeah, give it a try. I don't think it would work to put that in water. What you could do is you could make a propagator like I did when I went to hort school. You take 1 clay pot, about, this big, and you put an outdoor light fixture. So you got an extension cord with an outdoor light thing on it. You could buy those at the Ace Hardware. You stick it under the pot you got on the bottom. Then on the pot on the top, and it has a drainage hole, you fill it full of sand. And then you stick your fillings in there. Now even better than sand now, you could buy special propagating soil at the nursery. So get that. You just keep it moist, you keep your plants in it, and you keep the light turned on to add heat. So you gotta watch, because it can dry up. The water in the top pot that's this way could dry up, and you got your plants in there. And then you put chopsticks or something in, and you put a plastic bag over the top, a clear plastic bag. So that kind of keeps the humidity and everything. I could propagate anything by doing that. So that works good. Okay. J'adore cette plante ici. I love this plant with a passion. So the common name for this is hummingbird hyssop. Hummingbird hyssop. So that gives a few hints. Who likes it? And this is called agastiki. Some people call it agastaki, but I'm pretty sure you're really supposed to call it agastiki. So agastiki rupestis. There's a whole bunch of agostikis. Most of them have much bigger leaves. People make herbal tea out of this all the time. And now I do want to give one warning that I should have said before. Even when you get, let's say you get a brand new Monarda, don't make tea out of that until it's been in your garden for 2 years. You don't know what they put in the soil at the nursery or wherever they grow it to make sure there's no bugs when you buy it. So you gotta be careful. I even eat the berries off my hardy fuchsia. They are delicious, really high in vitamin C. And the only thing is, you gotta remember, they have to be totally ripe. If they're not, which is what happened on a TV show I was on, I used to go on Channel 7 once a week on the news, and I talk about some cool plants. So I brought in some hardy fuchsia with berries on them, but I was gonna give it to the anchor guy, but he grabbed one before I could, and it wasn't ripe. It's hard to talk when your mouth looks like this. He had pucker power. If you ever eat one of those and walk in the front door, your partner's gonna run out the back door when they see the pucker on your lips. That's all I can tell you. So don't eat it until you've grown it a couple years, and then you can make great tea out of this. And so it smells divine. And so I grew one of these last year. I've grown them over the years, but I grew one last year. We got that 11 degree. It looked deader than a doornail. There was nothing. I cut it to the ground thinking, well, I'll see, you know. And mine at home is about this big already now. Came back like a gangbuster. So it gets these flowers that they're kind of like, they're sort of like little tunnels or little, what you call them, but kind of different too. They're really cool. That's all I can tell you. This has pink flowers, and hummingbirds can't leave it alone. They're on it all the time, and anybody that walks by it smells so good when they rub it, you know. So this is a pretty cool plant. All right, who is native to Puyallup? Okay, I saw you first. All right, you're gonna get your chance to win this great plant. All right. Let me think. If you, no, I want to change that. Okay. Do cats control moles? Sometimes. Well, there was a woman down the street. She lived 5 houses away from me. She had this cat that was so good at hunting that she didn't want it out during the daytime because it would get birds. So she would cook the best chicken you've ever had in your life and lure the cat in every evening or every morning. And that cat was out all night. About once a month at least, I'd find a mole on my doorstep right by the front door. So they can be the best hunters, but they can be the laziest bums on earth too. Okay, you won that. Good job. Enjoy this. Must have good drainage and full sun.
Okay.
Good. All right. Okay. I'll take. Are there more questions yet? Right here. Do I have a favorite hummingbird? Well, you know, we only have 2 here, and it's either the Annis or the Rufus. I just gave a talk about hummingbirds in Spokane. They have the black-chinned, and they have calliope, which is really cute. It's the smallest hummingbird in the United States, and it's got these red things. The black-chinned has kind of a blue thing, but I really like Anna hummingbirds because I love how their whole head turns red, their whole neck turns red. But Rufus hummingbirds are the funnest to watch because they are such little rascals. They are so tough. You should never put 2 hummingbird feeders up where the hummingbirds can see both of them at the same time. You'll get a tough Rufus on there. It'll just go back and forth, beating the living Tweedle out of everybody on both feeders. They don't want any competition for the territory. But Annas do something that I'm going to show you at the end that I just love, and they do it in my garden a lot. So I'll be showing you in a minute. Okay, I think I'm probably overdoing my time, am I? Okay, so, all right. Oh, good. Okay, I'm going to give away my 2 last things. Okay, I'll start with a book. So now I've got 8 of these to sell. It's $20 cash. I don't care if anybody buys one or not, but oh, great. And I'll sign it for whoever buys it. So I only brought 8 because you don't want to carry 50, and it takes forever to sign them. But so my first book, which I saw, the librarian, came out and I signed it. That was called Ask Ciscoe, and it was a Q&A. I wrote 2 others, but I was a co-author for Jackson and Perkin Roses. We put out books for them. But then I got to write my own. It was called Ask Ciscoe. It was a Q&A. That little book, to my great surprise, ended up the #1 selling garden book in the United States for a while. It was really exciting. You want to know the funny thing? You don't get rich writing a book. I did get paid to write it, I got to admit that. But I just got a royalty check in the mail. I opened it up, $4.14. Probably cost more to write the check and send it. So Ask Ciscoe really was a huge success. It was great. So my publisher asked me to write it again with new questions. I didn't want to do that. I knew it would be a dud. And so we argued, and they finally let me write the book I wanted to write. This is short stories from my gardening career, because I've been a gardener forever. I started when I was 10 years old. And they're supposed to be funny as can be. I can only tell you I laughed when I wrote them. And they do teach a garden lesson in every one of them, except for a couple. And if you suffer from insomnia, 10 minutes at bedtime takes care of everything. So anyway, that's Ask Ciscoe. So one of you lucky people is going to win this. So is there anyone who has a birthday this week? Anybody that has a birthday this month? Okay, you're going to get this book. Okay, and I will definitely sign this for you right away. Okay, here's your question. If you were a hummingbird, would you rather be a male or a female? One more try. You won. You'd rather be a male. They're the laziest bums on earth. They don't do anything. The female makes a little nest the size of a half walnut. She even weaves in spider web to hold it together. She lays 2 eggs in there. She has to fight off the predators that are after those eggs, keep those eggs warm, somehow feed herself. No help from the male whatsoever. Then when the babies hatch, guess who feeds the babies? Guess who fights off the predators? Guess who kicks them out of the nest and teaches them to fly? During all this time, the male has 2 jobs: protecting his territory and mating, my kind of job. So you won this. Okay, and now final. So when I started my garden show with Megan Black, she's the best. I just had breakfast with her the other day. She's the spokesperson for the Renton Police Department now. So, when we started working together, Home Depot was one of our sponsors. And so I had to give garden talks for Home Depot as part of the deal. And at the very first garden talk, they made Gardening with Ciscoe t-shirts and gave them to every person who came to the talk, and they were pretty cool. But they never did it again. So I came home, and my wife, Mary's very artistic. I said, I'd like to give away 1 Gardening with Ciscoe t-shirt at every talk I do so they become collector's item. This is the 4th series that she's designed. We've gone through a lot of them. And so I'll show you what it looks like. So of course you gotta have oh la la in there. Now, one of my stories in my new book, Oh La La, is about when I was a hippie. So I think that's what inspired her here. So around that Brussels sprout, it says, peace, love, and Brussels sprouts. So, and the only condition if you win this, you have to wear it to Canless Restaurant. They'll make you wear a tie with it, but other than that. Okay, so, okay, let me think. Okay, who ate Brussels sprouts this week? Okay, you're gonna get your chance to win this book. Dynamite. That's why you're so good looking. Okay, so here's my question. Hummingbirds, you may not notice, Hummingbirds don't live anywhere on Earth but North and South America and the Caribbean islands, a few other islands in that area. No other continent on Earth have hummingbirds. None in Africa, Europe, Asia, anywhere. And all my friends from those places are so jealous when they come to the United States and see our hummingbirds. They're so cool. Now, hummingbirds are the only bird that can actually fly backwards and stand still in the air. They can even fly upside down. So when they're standing still in the air, they flap their wings 80 times per second. However, when they feel a certain emotion, they can actually flap their wings 160 times per second. Is it when they're mad, when they're scared, or when they're in love?
I would say when they're in love.
You got it! So I'm going to end this talk, and let's see. Oh, you get to look through and find your size in there.
Thank you.
You bet. So, in ending this talk, I will end it by demonstrating the hummingbird mating dance. It's not quite as exciting as you may expect, but here's what I see all the time in my garden. I see two Annas. It's usually the Annas that do this. I've heard that other types, hey, if you want any of that stuff in there, just go ahead. So Anna hummingbirds, you'll see two of them 4 feet apart, sitting, just going, those are females. So in my garden, it's Heloise hummingbird and Hannah hummingbird. Just Howie hummingbird comes shooting up between them, gives both of them the eye, then from a dead stop, shoots like a rocket straight in the air, hits speeds over 60 miles an hour, flaps his little wings 160 times per second, just shoots up to about 120 feet in the air, locks his wings into his side, goes into a death-defying dive. Just is about to splat like a ripe tomato on the patio. It goes, misses the cement by 1/8 inch. What us guys have to do for love. Oh la la. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks so much, everyone, for coming and joining us today. We will be doing a raffle for those of you who signed up on Bridge, and we're in person. So thanks again for coming. Thank you, Ciscoe.
Oh, my pleasure. If I didn't answer a question for you, if you want to book, you come up and catch me. So.
Here, I have a better marker.
Oh, good. Oh, good, good. Thank you. You're.